Quite detached from my Libyan heritage, I suppose, despite having Libyan culture around with the food and music and so forth. But I felt that I really wanted to connect more with my dad's country. So I went there in 2010, and then I went again in 2011, and that's when I heard about this team. So it kept living in my brain, and then when I eventually met them, I thought this is the perfect way to explore Libyan society, because they're from so many different backgrounds, but also for me to explore my Libyan heritage through these wonderful, brilliant and funny women.
And also the timing was crucial, because Libya was in a transitional phase. It was just about after the Libyan revolution, and then it continued and carried on for a number of years, where everything changed in Libya.
Yes, I suppose, I mean, you've seen the film, the initial part of the film is so hopeful, and that captured that spirit just after 2011, where a whole country was very hopeful. And then over those 5 years, we see the reality of what building Libya represented, and all the complexities of that, and the war, the civil war that occurred, and the impact of that, not just on the women in the film, but on society in general.
Let's face it, the film is not about football.
No.
I mean, one of the main characters, he said, my dream is to have a family and children, but my bigger dream is for women to achieve what they wanted. Another character as well says, it's not about football, it's about stopping us from being who we want. So it's about female empowerment. And we see this dichotomy between women's position and men's position in this society at the time. So we'd like to know, how did you try to make the balance between filming the women and the football, and at the same time filming what was going on in Libya, on the other hand?
Yeah, I suppose for me it's not necessarily about gender, male and female. It's about the fact that Libya is a patriarchal society, and that structure is within the culture. So these women, by playing football, they were crossing the red line of what's expected of them. But then this filters into the rest of their lives, so they can cross the red line in the sense of, you know, they go on to become doctors or geologists or filmmakers, or, you know, they're going out and taking their place in society. And so for me it was really interesting to witness how these women were doing that, but together as a collective.
إن شاء الله تكون المرة هذه مختلفة على الجبل. أحلام.
You mentioned that the first phase was about Libya after the revolution, if we can call it as such, and the hope and the euphoria of this phase, and then after that a country descending into chaos. How this reflected on the way you made the film, logistically and also artistically?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked an artistic question, because often people don't. I thought it was important, firstly, creatively and artistically, that we allow the audience to experience what that feels like. So, for example, in the news, you would maybe show the fighting that's going on down the road, but in the film, we just hear it, or we experience it through screens in the same way that the women do. And so creatively, I wanted the audience to experience what that feels like. Creatively, I really wanted to create that environment. There's also an energy that runs through the film and the camera work and the way it's edited that gives that impression of something that's slightly, has a different energy and a different pace, and that pace and energy changes as the film progresses.
We cannot talk about Libya without raising the issue of security. Were there any concerning the women in the film?
We've had to be really smart and make sure that the film arrives to the world in the right way, because it could be very easy to have a Western perspective, that this is some crazy girls, women's liberation in Libya, doing a crazy sport in a crazy place.
It's very easy to fall into this.
Yes, and I really wanted to do the opposite of this and make something that was nuanced, that was sensitive and wasn't sensationalist.
تقدر تكون مختلفة، تقدر تتبع حاجة تانية، تقدر مثلا تكون بمعنى أنها عادي تمشي تطلع على المألوف يعني.
العائلة لما بتعطي بنتها للمكان هدايا في أمان.